Good morning, everyone, and welcome to another webinar deep dive for 2025, Volume 4. Today, we are very excited to announce the release of a new course in our LMS. I know a lot of our clients have already signed up for the main course to run through the settings and setup for Jobman, and now we're starting to expand on those courses by providing some really excellent usability tools. And today's big release is the kiosk mode. One of the best features, of course, of Jobman is the ability to communicate everything live with the team, have the team be able to log on to operations, create alerts, receive stock, create forms, upload files, so much power and functionality within that particular module. And I think from what we've seen from a lot of people is it's highly underutilized. There's so much going on in there. So we've managed to put together a phenomenal course. And the idea behind this is that even your team can get in and jump on this course. They don't need to worry about the settings course, but how to follow through now that's been set up for them and actually use that information to give you the best result out of the software possible. So we're very happy and very proud to release the new LMS course for kiosk users. We're definitely looking forward in the future to expanding upon this even further. But the great usability here is we really want the team to be able to take advantage of the functionality provided and give you the most amount of data. The best thing about Jobman is it's not like a typical project management software or Excel spreadsheet where one person is in charge of running the software. This is really about team engagement. We want a team to be able to use the software, make your life easier, buy back your time, give you the data you need, all live. Linked to the system. So just a quick recap on what the kiosk is compared to the office user mode. There's two license modes in Jobman. You've got the office user mode, which is where we spend most of our time in these webinars showing you new functionality around quoting, purchase ordering, job management, lead management, CRM, reporting, all that sort of side. But for the majority of your team, they will be involved in what's called the kiosk license. And this is a phenomenal license. It's linked directly to your software. It can be used on a phone, tablet, or browser. So, if you've got a CNC machine downstairs and that has browser access, they can load up the kiosk. It has multifunctionality use for staff members. So you can have centralized kiosks such as the Integra K4 system, or you can have operating software around the manufacturing space itself. So everyone can have some form of tablet or phone. You can even do this from your personal device, which is awesome. So what we really wanted to do was we wanted to provide a course or a course structure where once you've started to implement the software and we're starting to get the team involved, make it really easy for the project managers rolling this software out to be able to then go to the team and say, hey, if you've got any questions about your particular role or how to use it or some tips and tricks, here it is built, ready to go. All free, all at your fingertips, all really easy to get involved in. So for those of you who have not yet been to the Academy, I highly recommend it. We've noticed a huge influx of clients taking advantage of this free resource. So academy.jobman.com, really easy to get to. And you'll now see this new beautiful course here for kiosk users. Again, we've made this as simple as possible. And in this user module, the idea here is to teach how to use rather than how to set up. So if you're looking for the settings and how to connect your team to the kiosk or how to change their permissions and roles as to what they can achieve, all that can be handled through the main course, which is the setup for the administration team or Jobman champions. This is really about how do we actually get in and start using the software. So you'll notice it's broken into some really easy to follow, quick, short lessons. Nothing here is very complicated. Everything is very straightforward, easy for them to follow down. And we've made the lesson format really simple. So for example, if you come into one of the first lessons for the kiosk mode link, you can see that basically you'll be sending out an email to your team. They'll receive that email. They can take that link directly to a homepage. And then we've given them plenty of tips and tricks on how then best to manage that. For example, if you're using an iPhone and you open this in Safari, you can click on the top right, you can save to home screen. What they'll do is that will create the application or an app on their phone or tablet, ready to go. So they don't have to remember the user browser URL from there on in. It's just like any other app on their phone. They hit it, it pops up. They enter find their staff member name and hit their 4-digit PIN, and off they go. Really easy to set up and save, and then move forward from there. And the idea behind this is we want it to be really easy for them to interact with the lessons. For example, one of the biggest benefits to the kiosk mode is clock on, clock off, really automate that time and attendance, improve your HR management, buy back some time. So we've made it very straightforward, a lot of imaging. We know a lot of people are visual learners, so a lot of imaging, so it's really easy for them to see and know what they're doing and see how they can break down that information and then utilize it on a day-to-day without you even needing to train them. You can just show them this, they can read through, you can see it's not long in any way, shape, or form. They can come in. Most of the lessons are very quick, very easy, and most importantly, we'll explain to them the areas of the software and how to use them. For example, what are these icons I'm seeing on my dashboard? What do they do? How do I go to them? Now, it's important to note that based on your setup of the software, you may not have given all of your users access to every area of the software. So what we've also done is we've broken down the general kiosk user mode. So that's sort of like an everyone mode. Any of your factory workers or staff or contract installers or even accounts teams. Quite often, a lot of our clients give a kiosk access to accounts teams so that they can tick off operations. Yes, I've sent the invoices for these jobs, so back in your software, everything's up to date, moving along. They can record time if you need them to, so they're measuring time. And it's a very cheap and effective way to be able to take that data and utilize it and keep the software moving forward again without having to give them full access to your software. So as part of that, we've created the general user mode, the guideline for all the team to get involved. And then we've broken down some of the more specialty aspects of the software that you might not necessarily have given your team access to. For example, your manufacturing team probably doesn't need access to leads and contacts. You don't necessarily need them knowing the information of your clients or how the sales process is going or any part of that. So you might turn that off in the kiosk and they won't even see that functionality in their dashboard. They won't see contacts or leads. But if you do have sales team members, you probably and their job is to go out and just meet with the clients and maybe do check measures and things like that. And they're just knocking off operations, not necessarily estimating or lead managing, but just handling things for you so they can be dealt with. And they have kiosk access. There's a really nice breakdown here of then what those different tab types will look like and how they can utilize them, such as contacts, checking contacts, filtering, searching, direct links to Google Maps, for example. That's a massive one in the software, just being able to hit a button. All right, take me to my next destination. Off we go, plan my trip. Who are the people involved? What does this information mean and how do I get it? And you can see they're not long or complicated lesson formats at all. So really powerful, really useful. This will really help with the training and implementation side of moving the software out to your team. And we've broken it into several user types to cover the main use types that would be used in the software. For example, the sales team store person, how do they interact with inventory? Again, it's probably not something you give access to all of your team members. It might just be something you want one particular person in your operational persons to be able to manage for you and update inventory and pick listings. So how to manage that. Factory floor managers for things like double checking across alerts, keeping on top of target calendars, et cetera, et cetera. So all of that is now live. If you have not yet signed up, I definitely recommend going in. It's free. And one of the absolutely fantastic things we've been able to do alongside that is we've actually now been able to put certificates into the software as well. So this is not a big thing, it's not about ticking boxes and getting really excited. What it's mainly about is just so that when it comes to the implementation rollout for your teams, if as part of your process you want them to really go through and check everything off and know where they're up to and then complete those courses so that you have a record and you can see their certificate and make sure that they've actually done it. It's not a problem. You can come through here now. And once they finish the courses, they'll receive a certificate to say they've done amazing, awesome work. And most importantly, it's printable, downloadable, and shareable. So as part of your onboarding now, especially with your team members, when new team members come in, we know that, it's a constant thing with software. It's not just about getting it up and running within your business. It's then when new members come into your team or replacement staff come through, we need a way in which to get them quickly inducted with the software. And this new kiosk mode will be absolutely phenomenal in helping to make sure that happens for your team. Really easy. It takes that burden and pressure off you having to teach them. You can just basically send them the link, get them to log in, and then say, hey, part of your induction is just spend the next hour reading through this so you understand how to use it, and give us any quick questions if you have. So really awesome. Really excited to see this come out. There's been a lot of work put in by the team here to make sure this happens, and we can see a lot of usability study in cases for this, which will really help you get the best out of the software. So take advantage. It's all there. It's all ready to go, and it's live right now, which is super exciting. So on top of that, we've had some really fantastic releases in the last couple of weeks. Some new features have come into the software. Big one that's come up several times from clients is the idea that the batch ordering system in Jobman is phenomenal. You can be going in and adding purchase order materials to jobs constantly, and then at any given point, you can go into one section of the software and literally hit a button, choose a supplier, and we will generate a pending purchase order for all of the jobs batched up from across your software. So it makes the purchase ordering process, number one, very transparent, number two, very easy, but number three, and probably most importantly, it's forward focused on protecting your business, especially from things like freight. We know that's a big commonality. Purchase ordering, if you don't have a system that can control and manage your purchasing, it becomes very difficult to keep track of where everything is up to. And quite a lot of companies, before they come to Jobman, sort of stuck in this rut of we start jobs, we sort of work out the bill of materials list, and we go order. And that isn't optimal. It's costing you probably tens of thousands of dollars a year in lost time and freight expenses, where if you had a system like Jobman stepping in to be able to batch those materials to a particular area and then beat them by supplier to make your life really easy. Virtually one-click purchase ordering, 2 clicks really. You go create it and then send it. But as easy as humanly possible for your purchase ordering team to take advantage of your catalog ordering. All of that is available in the software. One of the big user feedbacks we got from that flow was, that's awesome. What happens if we accidentally make a change? So something gets missed, or perhaps at the last minute, just before the orders are going to go out, the client comes back to us and the detailing team or production drafting team needs to go in and quickly add more materials to that job. We don't necessarily want to miss out on the advantage of being able to batch those orders up. I mean, we could. It's not a huge headache. Like, the next day it's in your pending items. It could be added to the next purchase order. But I understand, and we certainly understand, that manufacturing is fast paced, and the more wins we can give you on a small scale add up to the bigger wins overall for your team and certainly your return on investment. So we had a lot of feedback saying, is it possible that we could build a system in which if new pending items are added to jobs or materials or stock, etc., and we've not yet placed those purchase orders, can they be quickly added in to the purchase order flow? And we thought, yep, absolutely. That's a great benefit. There's nothing worse than having to make last minute changes to a job and missing out on the advantage of the freight. So we've now added that in, very easy inside your purchase ordering. Now you will notice that as well as just adding directly a new material or service directly to a purchase order, you can now access pending items. So what that'll do is it'll pre-filter any of the pending items set for your jobs that have been sourced to purchase order, but not yet placed against purchase order. And by default, it will actually source them back directly to that supplier. So you don't need to filter or anything like that. It knows who the PO is for, where we're trying to send this. It's going to pick up those pending items. It also really helps for I found for a lot of companies that utilize their ordering in a slightly different way, especially companies that do larger commercial jobs or potentially bigger projects where they like to break the job into work orders. One of the benefits of this now is we've found for those companies, they can utilize the quote summary reporting to get a really good idea of what the upfront resource material use will be for the job, which then allows them to obviously go to their suppliers and do a little bit of negotiation potentially for large volumes at a time. And then having those items sitting there and being able to go in and create direct purchase orders and now add those pending items directly, and it doesn't have to be all, you can actually select on the checkboxes into that purchase order. Now it gives a little bit more of a seamless flow for the direct job ordering manufacturers as well. So it's really opened up some possibilities there for a lot of companies. Obviously, batch ordering is still by far the best way to use the system, but for a lot of companies, being able to order job on job, just pull down those pending items, depending on particular work orders or the job itself, is of massive benefit. So that's live in the software now, working really well, and we hope you certainly can take advantage of that new feature. As well as that, we've over the last couple of weeks, we've been doing a lot of work, and we've certainly released some great functionality around the ability to copy fields from parent jobs to work orders. Now, we know this is a massive use case for the software, not just for commercial companies. There's a lot of companies out there that we deal with in the manufacturing space, for example, boat building, fencing, areas like that, where there's a difference in flow. Doors is a big one as well, where there's actually a huge difference in the manufacturing process order based on the order itself. However, one given company may order multiple things. So, for example, I'll give you a great example recently of a door manufacturer we were dealing with, where they have several different types of doors. You think about your home that might come through in production for that builder. You've got your main outside doors, which tend to be reinforced, have stronger timbers used, and generally speaking, will have different locking mechanisms and potentially are multiple coated so that they're UV resistant, for example. Your inner doors, however, are just two-pack shaker painted, and then there might be security doors on top of that. So as a manufacturing process, even though you're going to quote all of those items at the same time, when they pull into the job, it's super important that we're able to separate those. And that's one of the massive benefits of item to work orders. Quoting in items in your lead allows you then to break those items down into work orders. Very, very common utilized power of the software. The interesting thing that most companies brought back to us was, even though the periods or the manufacturing flow itself might be different, the timeframes generally sit pretty close together. So one of the downsides, or I guess the not downsides, but one of the slight bugbears of the software was, whilst you could easily take a parent job, split it into work orders versus items, and then basically manage those jobs independently, having different flows, different job types, different staff members, everything. They basically became independent jobs. It was a bit of a manual process to go through and then have to reschedule each of those jobs, or place each of those jobs in your scheduling capacity. Not a huge issue. I mean, you just dive in, hit a button, hit the target date, let Jobman do its work. But still, we understand if it's anything we can do to improve your time process, we're absolutely there. And one of the big use cases for this, of course, is not just breaking down jobs into work orders from a project management point of view. It's those larger commercial jobs. And we've certainly had some experiences where customers have turned back and said, hey, I might be managing 20 to 50 work orders within a parent job. We need an easier way to manage this. If you can buy back 2 minutes of my scheduler's time or 5 minutes of my scheduler's time every work order, that adds up to a lot of time over a project, and that's a huge investment back in our pocket. So we absolutely were excited by the idea of how can we improve this. And a couple of weeks ago, we released the first part to this, which was the ability to copy target dates. So you can now go in and set the target date for, say, job start from the parent job, and you're able to copy that directly and quickly, easily into the relevant work orders. So if you're scheduling them fairly close together, like if the idea is that this entire door project, going back to that example, should be out at the same time, because we have to, even though they're 3 different manufacturing processes, we need to deliver them to site and install them all on the same day. It's now easy for you to copy those down. Part of that scope was, we also looked at what else we could do to make that process even easier for our clients. And a couple of really good points came up. People also wanted the ability to copy across completed tasks. So if, for example, each of your workflows has some commonality. They might be different because of the workflow manufacturing, or they could be the same. You might just be separating them because it's kitchen versus bathroom versus laundry, for example. But each of them has some commonality, and that commonality might be the job setup, the production, drafting, and detailing, and the purchase ordering. That all sort of gets done at the same time before we step into the manufacturing steps. So rather than have to generate the parent job, create X number of work orders, and then go into each of those work orders and go, well, we've actually, from the parent, already done the job setup for the work orders. We've already done all the purchase ordering. We've done all the production drafting. Rather than have to go through into each of those work orders, you now hit a button, and say, copy my completed tasks. So I can complete those 3 tasks, 4 tasks, or however many tasks on the parent job and immediately copy them to the other workflows. So that means the work orders are now starting at the point where basically the job is up to, and they can now be run and scheduled as individual jobs. So massive time saver again. And similarly with the non-applicable tasks, quite often there are particular job types that are relevant to the parent project, so understanding the overall job. But when we then dive into the work orders, those manufacturing processes might be changed, might be slightly different. So the ability to NA tasks in Jobman has always been a big part of that flow, to say, yes, while 90% of the time we would do this operation, for this particular job, it's not relevant. We can either get rid of it with a job type or simply click it NA in that particular job, and it disappears from the flow, so no one has to worry about doing it. So now you can, again, if that is relevant to all your work orders or some of your work orders, you get to select the work orders as part of the process. So you can really individualize and maximize the benefit of this flow through. You can now NA those tasks and then copy those NA tasks through to the work orders. And when those work orders have a workflow that match those operations, they will disappear as well. So really exciting. The one I'm most excited about, and probably the one that is the least, I'm not sure what the word is, but the least obvious as to its benefit, is the ability to copy labor centers. Now, as a standard manufacturing process, one of the great things about Jobman, one of the big automations it brings to your company, is the ability to set your operations versus labor centers. And this defines your capacity, allows for the automation of your scheduling, and of course gives you that very important data as to where your bottlenecks really lie and where your open availability is to bring in more business. So absolutely fantastic part of the software. One of the things that's interesting, though, is even though you might have a generalized labor center or an area of operation, for a lot of companies, they manage that particular operation based on either teams or machines. So individual capacity is very straightforward, right? Let's say you've got 4 installers as part of your team. You go into your labor center and you set up 4 installers. So 4 times 8 hours gives you a total of capacity of 24 hours. So that means if a job comes in and it's got 8 hours worth of capacity, you've assigned 1 person to it, we can fill that day knowing that we've still got 3 other slots available for that day. If a job comes in, it's got 16 hours of capacity and you apply 2 members to it, it can come in and we can have 1 job for 8 hours, 1 job for 8 hours, and 1 job for 16 hours with 2 people applied to it. All the intelligence is there. Makes a lot of sense when you're dealing with just singular people, and most operations in manufacturing revolve around single people. However, the 2 big areas that are slightly different to that concept tend to be, number 1, assembly teams, and number 2, machines. So a lot of companies, especially as they start growing and scaling, might have multiple CNC machines. Now, the automation of the software is designed that when we're taking a quote and we're quoting those operational hours and we want to report on them, and we bring that lead into the job, it's not at that point we're actually defining where that job goes. So one of the great foundational abilities of the software is, of course, to use staff members and member types to quickly decide who through the process is going to be doing that flow. Who's going to be the production detailer, who's going to be which CNC machine, which assembler, which installer, if you want to go to that level. So we can really direct the management, make sure we're getting optimal efficiency. Where it sort of gets let down a little bit is if you've got particular CNC machines that run at different speeds, and this is relevant to a lot of industries, especially cabinet making, but also a lot of other industries we deal with, where you actually want to separate that into a separated area, because depending on the job, it may go to a different machine. Can easily be done in the software. You just simply go into the operation and choose labor center, and now at the job control phase, you have the ability to schedule versus the right capacity in that area. The letdown, again, is if you do that in the parent job and you want all of this job to run through, let's say, your faster CNC machine or your baseboard CNC machine, or the entire job involves a cold saw, for example, you've then got to go into each of those work orders and modify that information. Whereas now, at a single click, you can set that at the parent job. So I can set who my installation team, my assembly team, and my labor center for my CNC are going to be, and then again, quickly copy that down across the different work orders. And what this really improves, or the big win to benefit here, especially for commercial joiners and large scale project manufacturers like boat builders and things like that, or again, different style manufacturers such as steel, doors, fencing, for example, is it makes it really easy now to manage and target the capacity based on your areas and your teams rather than your individuals, which improves your target calendar flow, makes your scheduling easier, and it allows for better optimization visibility in the software. So really excited about that one. Again, not massively obvious from outset how beneficial that will be, but certainly something if your team is looking to improve that and you sort of think about your manufacturing in batches of teams rather than individuals, that's something to look into, and you can definitely take some advantage there. So that's all out, it's all live, all working beautifully. Another big one, which is a usability request, which has really come forward, is so many of our clients have taken advantage of the task member application assigning. It's been a big one, the ability to assign your task members directly from a job or a lead, and then based on that task member type or that staff member type, automate all the assigning of tasks for the process. So very common example of this is in lead flow management. Typically, your team tends to be split into two halves. You have your sales team and your estimating team, for example. Your sales team is responsible for meeting the clients, talking to them, filling out the specs, really get an understanding of what they're looking for from the project. And then as they move through those particular tasks, they get to the point where they're ready and they've got enough details for estimating. And the estimating team steps in, takes all the details and information the sales team has done, so on and so forth, create the estimation, get it out to the client, hopefully win that job. Then it goes back to the sales team to follow up, make sure that we get that locked in. And then it might go to the accounting team, for example, to get the deposit invoices set and then move that backwards so that we can get that money in and kick that lead into a job. That's just a very simple example of, but a really easy way now within the software where I can generate the lead, grab the contact, start the lead, and in 3 clicks, I can decide who the sales member is going to be, who the estimator for that job is going to be, and the accounts person, if relevant, in your business, depending on the size of your organization. So that's phenomenal, easy, fantastic use case of staff member types. One of the best benefits to that is then if you set them up correctly, it will automatically go in and then naturally assign each of those tasks to the relevant staff member. So now they've been alerted that they've been, notified, I should say, that they're part of the job, or lead. The tasks have already been assigned to them. You get all the visibility on the agenda screens and everywhere, so everyone knows that person is doing that, et cetera, et cetera. And it's all very easy. Massive win case for a lot of companies, even companies that utilize the lean manufacturing style of, pull manufacturing rather than push. There are certain things you are going to want to dictate in your operational workflow management. One of the big ones, of course, being, for example, installation teams. You might run multiple installation teams, and we have one that goes south, east, north, west. So we want to make sure we're getting the right teams based on the different job. So all of that, phenomenal. Downside was, whilst you could delete member types if you accidentally chose the wrong member type, if you'd already assigned those tasks, there was no way of getting back out of that situation. And it's probably something we just didn't think about when we were scoping out the original area of the software, is that we thought, oh, yeah, no problems. If they put the wrong person in, we can delete. But a few clients came back and said, look, we love this area of the software. However, it would be super handy if we could quickly and easily unassign. And it's not just when mistakes are made. I also can fully see the use case where, for example, someone might start a job, like you might have a sales member and they've started 3 or 4 leads for you, and then they go on holidays for 2 weeks. And you're like, well, hey, I don't want to miss out on the follow-up processes and getting these jobs forward. So while they're away, I'm just going to quickly go in and unassign them and assign this to the new sales member. So once the estimating team is finished, for example, they'll get notified of the new tasks on their agenda screen to follow through. So nice and seamless, nice and easy. We wanted to make this process even better. So the team has put together a fantastic little bit of code there, which now means that from the member, directly within a lead or job. So if you, within the member type, you can see them up the top there and you choose members, it'll give you a drop down of the members and their particular type. And using the 3-dot menu now, you can come in and you can unassign them from tasks or even edit them to change the type of staff member that they are as linked, excuse me, to those jobs or leads. So Really exciting, nice and easy. It will automatically go through and then quickly unassign them, take them off all of the agenda screens and information and anywhere where you can see members, which is a lot throughout the software. There's a lot of areas where you can filter by member, especially target calendars for your scheduling, agenda screens for what your team are working on, and even the main screens so you know who's allocated to what for fast filtration. You can now go through, it'll unassign them all through that list in one click, and then you can add whoever you want to put back in. So I think that covers pretty much everything I wanted to run through today. What I thought I might quickly do just in this process here is make sure that I come in and I just want to show you just a couple of those areas just so you know where to find them, where to use them. There's no setup involved really in the background here that I have to run through. Most of these features are relevant more specifically to being able to utilize areas just a little bit better. So I'll only spend a couple of minutes doing this and we can jump on some questions. So again, adding setting or pending items to already created purchase orders. The hot tip I want to give you here is just to make sure that the purchase order is in a status that can be modified. So for example, if a purchase order has already been placed and partially or fully received, you won't be able to take advantage of this information simply because it's already past the point at which you could be creating an order rule. Now, I know that sounds a little bit redundant to say, but it is worth mentioning. You know, there's no current way of you having an order placed and then amending that order because it's too late. It's already gone to the supplier. So just keep that in mind when you're modifying and utilizing this new fantastic additional technology. Is just be mindful of the fact that you are going to need to utilize it in an area for a purchase order that has not yet been sent, and that's the point. We want to give you an ability like up to the death knock to be able to add in pending items from jobs that have been moved into the software already so that you're not missing out on the great ability to batch order and freight. But once it's actually gone, there's not much we can do about that. So really exciting. Nice and easy to use. That can be utilized from the POs directly in the job or POs directly in the batch ordering system. So when I say batch ordering, I mean this area of the software where you've got your purchase ordering and you would typically go to your pending items, choose those items and break down. It works on both functionalities. You can see that add pending items now directly. So we've improved both those flows for our clients, which is really exciting. The second one, of course, was the staff member types and the allocation. So I'll just come in here and I'll quickly grab any job, doesn't really matter which one. And you can see here that once I've got those members in, I am assigned as a member to this job. I can then double check what areas I'm built in. So what my person is, I'm just listed as a member of this job at the moment simply because I created it, no particular type. But if I was, for example, the drafts person or the installer or the assembler, etc, you would see that member type here as well. And now nice and easy, one click from that hamburger menu just to unassign me from all tasks. So that can then be assigned, a new member can be created and new tasks can be put through and the flow will follow the same again. So if you remove me as the production drafter, for example, and then add another person as production drafter, all of those remaining operations or tasks that need to be handled by that person, they'll be notified of that as well, and they'll be applied as the members, which is nice and easy and ready to go. So very easy to utilize, not difficult in any way, shape, or form to take advantage of. What I did want to quickly show you, because this is a common question we get in the creation of work order styles, is some of the benefit around that copy down. So you can see here, I've got a job, it's broken down into different items. I can utilize and take those items and create a work order from them. Very common practice in the software. A couple of things that are really fantastic. I can change workflow. So for people that have utilized the software in almost like a project management sense, where the parent job is more around high level operations and then each of the work orders is manufacturing, that can be utilized very easily by creating different workflows. I can also individualize the types. So again, it's not just the workflow manufacturing. I can expand or detract on that particular work order workflow based on the information that's relevant to that manufacturing job. And then of course, when I'm creating those work orders down with the follow through now, the information will pull in. We pull out the lead resources and time management, assuming you use our quoting system from the front end. We have our task management built into the system based on those different variables that I've set for the work order. So all nice and easy, really quick, really easy. Another thing I love about Jobman is the breadcrumb system. So rather than have to go back and mess around, I can easily come in here and just quickly go back to the parent job, set up my target dates for the system. So let's kick this off today. Let Jobman do its intelligence, use its smarts, go through, check my capacity, run through my current jobs, work out the total area that needs to be covered here. And one of the big things that's really important about this particular area, again, is keep in mind that use case for the labor centers. And that's why I wanted to quickly show this one, because I'm not 100% sure that everybody is across this or has had an opportunity to investigate and utilize this power of the software. So from the job management itself, I can actually set the direct labor center for that particular area. And this is most useful, like I said, for companies that like to operate for machines and teams. So if I had two different machining operations here, CNC1 and CNC2, for example, or I had an assembly team, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, utilizing labor centers now makes it really easy to be able to turn around and take this information and allocate your scheduling and capacity based on those areas rather than individuals, which just makes for a much cleaner operation in the software. And of course, now you can see the new fields to copy. So I can field the target dates and the labor centers. Here, you'll see a full list of the work orders relevant, and this is multi-select. So you can select multiple, singular, or a couple, or all. It's completely up to you. Copy that down, and it's that easy. I can now take that information, copy it across to the relevant area, and in just a couple of clicks, I've been able to take advantage of the job, take advantage of building some work orders very quickly and easily, and then, of course, absolutely massively make my life super easy by having that scheduled already. And then if I need to make some minor tweaks just for this area of the work order, I can, but the majority is set up. The automation is there. It's moved across. The information has copied down so we can see exactly what's going on, where we're up to, and then we can double check with our capacity. And of course, our target calendar and know where everything is up to really easily in a couple of clicks for many, 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 many work orders. So this is a fantastic, fantastic addition of software, and I know it will get a lot of use. Very excited about that release, and certainly something a lot of clients have been really looking forward to for an improvement in their workflow management and that time saving. Again, anything we can do to help save you time is just putting more dollars in your pocket, really. So absolutely excited. Couple of quick questions that came through during the week from the release of the LMS. One of the big ones was, will you be doing this for office user mode? Absolutely. We are, look, it was always on the battle plan to create several courses to allow clients to really utilize the best of our free educational tools to get the most out of the software. We did the user setup as the first one because that's the most important. You know, how can we easily and streamline the ability for teams to see and use the information, and most importantly, see the documentation in a format that makes sense from front end to back end. So absolutely, we've built that through, and that will be an ever-expanding process now. As new things come to the software, we'll bring those in. The next two parts, of course, were the usability, and we decided to tackle the kiosk first, just because it seems to be one of the big reasons why a lot of people are coming to Jobman at the moment. They're really looking for the scheduling and the capacity and the quoting and the planning. But the big thing seems to be, if you boil it down to a single line, is I want help managing the team. I want to be able to communicate with the team easily and digitally so that, you know, I can have a holiday or I can take a week off knowing that my business will continue to run. So we've done the kiosk user mode first because it seems to be the majority of our users are, in fact, kiosk users, which makes a lot of sense. It's how the licensing has been designed. So we wanted to tackle that one first. So it's easy now to implement and train the team on using it. You can make them a little bit self-aware, and also they now have a point where they can go back to check things without having to rely on your knowledge base, which is fantastic. The second part to that, of course, is we absolutely will definitely be doing the same thing for the office user mode. The difficulty there, and part of the reason why it's taking a little bit longer than expected, is simply because it's such a big area of software. There is a lot, and there's a lot of different user case models, a lot of stuff going on. It's a big platform, very inexpensive for how much it provides. You know, return to benefit there is obviously humongous, but yeah, lots going on. So that's going to take a bit of a project management. We definitely want to get it right. But the short answer to the long answer there is Yes, we will be releasing that in the not too distant future, and I will be definitely doing a deep dive when that comes out because I think that's going to be a phenomenal improvement to the software. All right, let's dive into some other questions. Is GPS available in mobile phone kiosk users, installers, and visible to office users so I can track actual labor time on site away from the factory? If so, is a history of this visible to office users? I'd also like to periodically audit where staff are when they clock on and clock off in kiosk from their phones. If time, I've got a related question about remote staff using kiosk. Fantastic question. Thank you very much for bringing that up. Now, I am going to answer this question with a massive caveat. And that massive caveat is that Jobman is an international based software. So, what that means is that we have users from all around the world. Now, we're very fortunate, depending on how you look at it, in Australia, that we have a lot of personal protection laws designed for companies. We understand the benefit of some limited impingement on freedom of rights. For people when it comes to business. For example, putting GPS trackers in trucks and things like that is just a natural standard of our living because it improves, insurance claims, and it is designed to make sure things aren't going wrong in our business. So we're okay here. You can basically do virtually anything you like as a business owner, so long as you're not impinging on personal freedom, so to speak. However, the rest of the world is not as seamless. What that means is that a couple of years ago, I think it was the European Union basically fought very hard to improve what's called user technology rights and protection. There's still probably a long way to go from that front, but they're doing their best to really help, and that's because that's their driving force to make sure that technology never overrides or impinges the personal freedoms of human beings. Which I think, personally, I don't have an opinion either way, but I get where they're coming from. So the reason I bring that caveat up is because yes, the software has GPS tracking, and if you go down to your staff list, so in the left-hand user menu panel as an office user, one of our more fun features that's often not noticed, again, it's a little bit hidden away. If you go to staff and you go to maps, you'll be able to see the login of operations versus the kiosk mode, and the office users for that matter as well. Everything in the background is located. However, it is user device controlled because that's how the world now works. So we basically ask the question the first time they log on and use it, and we say, do you allow this website to track your location? As an Australian, or I think New Zealand, or most businesses around the world, you're well within your rights to tell your staff that they have to do that. However, it is user device control. So if they block it because their iPhone or their Android phone, there's nothing we can do about that. By law, legally speaking, they are allowed to protect their personal information if they choose. So, I mean, obviously, you can say to them, part of the deal with working here is that we need to know where you are because it's an accountability thing, it's an insurance thing. It's not that we're checking up on you, it's just because we're actually worried. We are liable for your safety, for example. However, ultimately, that is device controlled. Now, if they accidentally choose to block and then you come back and say, I need to know where you are, there are ways, depending on the device, of being able to unblock that from the website. You can certainly Google those. But as a default standard, yes, we are measuring every time they clock on to an operation or clock off to an operation, we are measuring that space. Now, the second part to that is, what about the generic clock on and clock off? We are actually mapping the information at the moment, but I don't believe we're showing it. This was not intentional. It was part of the release of the clock on, clock off. We obviously wanted to make sure that people knew, so we're actually mapping the information. It just hasn't come up onto the maps yet, simply because we've been making an internal decision around how best to show that information so that it's separated from operations. You can imagine that for small teams, it's not so stressful, but for bigger teams where they've got a lot of staff who will be logging in areas that are very similar, like you can imagine that we've got companies with 50 to 100, 150 staff, and 80% of those work in the factory or location, and they're all coming in and they're logging on, clocking on, and it's basically all within 1 meter of each other based on GPS location standards. It can get a little bit hectic in there. So the short answer is yes, we do measure. And the second answer is yes, it is visible. The third answer is very soon you'll be able to see the clock on, general clock on and clock off attendance. However, all of their actual operation time is being mapped, which is the big thing for most companies. So all good. In Microvellum, which specific file do I need to import from my design team into Jobman to calculate labor time materials? Good question. Probably something better off handled in a separate sense, maybe with the training team or the help team? The short answer is we have two different types of import. Basically, Microvellum, I believe, exports to a particular type of CSV. It's a report that can be run. I believe you have to upgrade with Microvellum to be able to do it. They're a little bit different to other CAD programs. But basically, there are two halves to our import if I wanted to give you just a really super short answer. Number one, in quoting, we can bring through room, product, dimension, and quantity. So utilizing your product setup in Jobman, basically we can match those product names, bring them down, and you can quickly and easily produce quotes from Microvellum drawings, which is a big one. You can do that with Mosaic and CADmaster and Cabinet Vision as well, and a number of other programs, 2020, which is awesome. The main use case for the CAD integrations, though, because a lot of companies don't design first and then quote. They quote first, and then once it's worth winning the job, so they use Jobman to quote and then design because they've actually got the money in the bank to do the design, and it makes sense to move the job forward, but it has to be done anyway. So the main use case for the import export for the CAD programs is actually the job resource materials. So again, Microvellum can produce a report that brings out, I believe it's SKU or product name description code, quantity, and then same process again. So if you've built, for example, your hinges in Microvellum and use Blum, you have that SKU in Microvellum and you make that drawing. When we export the raw materials report with the optimized hardware lists, any of those SKUs that match in Microvellum and Jobman can be brought in. If you're interested in more of that information, I'd recommend definitely reaching out to the training team or the support team and maybe booking a bit of a demonstration around that, so we can explain in a bit more detail. But basically, yeah, very useful if you are producing a lot of kitchens or a lot of manufacturing a week with Microvellum. You can really save a lot of time and headaches and really optimize that purchase ordering flow and quote flow potentially if you want to as well, which is good. Great questions. Related to my first question, only if GPS will be available, are there plans to launch a kiosk app for iPhone and Android? If so, is there a target date? Cool. I'm going to make that really easy to answer that one. And the question is no, or the answer is no. There is no plan on producing a kiosk app. And I'll tell you why. We have a kiosk app. We have a full grade kiosk application. We are an absolute 100% grade control of it. The minute you produce an application or an app, as it's colloquially termed in the wild world we live in, and your designation is then to put that on Apple or Android, so Google Play or Apple Play Store, there are two massive problems with that. Number one, Apple and Google want to get paid. And we've never really seen the point or understand the benefit to you paying them for an application that you're paying us for already. So that's one point to it. Why would you want to pay them for an app that we give you for free? But number two, and probably more importantly, and one of the biggest downsides to apps as they exist in the world right now, is that the minute you do that, you're bound by Apple and Google standards, and they're quite different, and they have different focuses because obviously they're businesses and they are for profit. So the way they wish to do things is up to them. Now, what I mean by that is, have you ever used a banking app? Like, for example, ANZ banking app. When you go on the website, which is a web application, you can do everything virtually, except anything you might need to call them for. When you use the app, about 50% of the stuff you want to do cannot be managed on the app. And the reason being is because they have to cut down the application so heavily to conform to the standards and rules set by Apple and Google that you basically miss out on half your functionality. Again, that makes absolutely zero sense to us. We don't see any point to that. We have built this application in a full sense so that you can take advantage of it and your team can take advantage of it. You can get the best benefit to it. Now, the reason you can know it's an application is because if you take that browser link, and let's say you've got an iPhone and you open that browser link for the kiosk in your iPhone on Safari and use the top right menu to save to home screen, you'll see it create the Jobman kiosk app. So it is a full application by all sense of the word. We're just not doing it through Apple and Google, which I guess brings you back to the second part to your question, which is the benefit I can see is that staff location can be turned on within a dedicated app when in use. I'm concerned about staff privacy issues with the browser-based kiosk could be asking staff location on their phone. Browser versus dedicated app would be less intrusive. The GPS location tracking based on the web applications now is designed based on the browser page. So it used to be that only location services could be mapped and tracked from applications. Now they actually handle like Google Chrome and for those of you not aware, all browsers are now based on Google Chrome, so you only need to conform to one standard. It doesn't matter if it's Safari, Firefox, whatever. Google Chrome is now in control of that. So we don't do what's called privacy location. If we did, we would have to build that into the software somehow so it could be turned on and off. What we deal with is simply location tracking for the elements that we're utilizing. So clocking on, clocking off, operation time and that. So we're not actually location tracking while they're moving around. So you could clock on, for example, at the warehouse, go for a 6-hour drive, and then clock off that operation out there. We have no idea where you've been in that meantime. We are simply tracking the point at which you clock on and the point at which you clock off. And ultimately it is user controlled. If they do not want you knowing that information, they can turn it off. That's the wonderful world we live in. Unfortunate for businesses that do want to take advantage of it. There's nothing we can do. That's how we conform to those international privacy laws, but we're not GPS location tracking throughout their stay. So we don't have to worry about that as a through, and you certainly don't have to worry about it as a business owner. We're just giving you the information that people want, which is basically, did little Johnny get out of bed and say, I'm here, or is little Johnny actually in the warehouse doing his job? So not a problem there. All covered, all thought through, and absolutely, I'm not disagreeing with the idea that an app would not be of great use. I think one day in the future of possibly Internet 4.0 or 5.0, that will be a much better solution in the world when Google and Apple don't have such a stronger hold on it, and there is a more open to market capability for companies to just release easy download apps. We might, in fact, produce one in the world at some point where we allow it from our web store. Keep in mind, again, we always want it to be open user-based. We don't want you to pay someone else for it when you're already paying us. And most importantly, the difference between our application and a standardized application is your kiosk is linked directly to your organization. So it's not a generic thing. It's not like I have a kiosk mode and it's just a thing in the world. It's actually a license and an application linked directly to yours. And we don't want that just generally linked to all. It's not a case of I download the app and then I go find my organization and connect to it. It's very specifically and very importantly encrypted and tailored to connect to your site, because it's providing your site with live information every time they're logging on, creating alerts, all that sort of stuff. So data security is a big part of it, and that's why we will always be in control. But awesome question. Thanks for bringing them through. Thanks for the GPS answer. Cool. You're very welcome, Michael. In catalog inventory, I'd like to create our own SKU numbers, different from supplier SKUs. Okay, I'm not sure of the use case there. I currently only have barcode or notes to enter these in, not visible across all views. Is there another cleaner way to enter these? You can put whatever you like in the SKUs field. That's not a problem. But what will break is your purchase ordering. So the idea behind SKU fielding is the SKU is determined by the supplier. The whole point to that is that the supplier is the one who dictates the SKU, because when you place the order, whether it be on an online ordering system or you send it to them via email and they enter those numbers, that's the number they use, because product codes and SKUs are universal. And one of the big reasons for that is, for example, if you're in the cabinet making space, Blum is a major supplier around the world. However, Blum typically has multiple distributors throughout their network. So in Australia, for example, you've got Wilson and Bradley, you've got Lincoln Century, and you've got Blum. You can buy it from 3 different places. So the key to the software is we need to isolate and delineate directly to the supplier SKU, because when you place that order, and it's the same as Microvellum, for example, your CAD software uses the supplier SKU, because that's the field, that's the thing. When we place that purchase order, I need to order that from someone. Who I order it from is a different case, but the SKU is delineation there. Now, with that said, you can put whatever you like in the SKU field, it doesn't matter, but it will break. And one of the things you will lose access to is if you're utilizing, for example, the Hafele integration or Wilson Bradley integrations at the moment, you go to send that order, the system has no way of picking up. It doesn't know, they don't know your SKUs, for example. So I'm not sure of the use case you're trying to go for here. I guess if I had a bit more relative understanding as to what you're trying to achieve, I could probably give you a better recommendation. To be fair, there's heaps of different fields in the items where you can utilize individual note taking. So we have notes, we have description fields, we have heaps of areas where you can put personalized information relevant to your business, but SKU needs to be from the supplier, because ultimately that's who it's coming from. The supplier dictates it. So the only one use case I could think of is the substitute concept. One of the great things about the way we've set up our software is, and I'll use that Blum as a perfect example, where you have a particular hinge, a soft close hinge, and it has a supplier SKU, but you might source it from Lincoln Century, you might source it from Wilson Bradley, you might source it from Blum. So building what's called a generic quote pricing option, not available to order, and having that sit there so that it can be fielded out to the substitutes to allow for some automation in your purchase ordering inventory makes a lot of sense. However, even then, I would still use the SKU of the product on the non-orderable material. It just makes the smarts behind connecting everything work, because ultimately that's what we're trying to connect up. Whether you buy something from Bunnings, Reese, or Hafele, or Blum, or whoever it is, the SKU is relevant. And for non-generic items, so suppliers, for example, a lot of steel manufacturers don't have SKUs linked to their different types of steel because they're modifying and moving all the time. For those, you can enter whatever SKU field you like because the supplier doesn't need it. So long as the supplier doesn't need it, you can utilize what you want. I'm not sure I answered that very well. I do apologize, only because I don't really understand the use case there, but hopefully that gave you some information as to the question. Thank you for the app browser question. You helped with my rollout to my team. Not a problem, Michael. Really welcome. Would you recommend put my initial SKUs in notes versus barcodes? Yes, I would. If you have internal SKUs, I would put them in notes. One of the benefits being is you can see them on inventory, kiosk, catalog. It's a column. So columns in Jobman are user controlled. So you can turn them on and off based on what you want to see. So the notes field makes the most sense. The reason I wouldn't use the barcode is because at some point in the future, hopefully not too distant future, Jobman is intending to roll out barcode and QR and ST4 scanning into our software, which will just be absolutely massive for a lot of companies to be able to really refine their inventory catalog process. So I wouldn't want you to have that field set up and moving it forward so that it's, you've got information in there. So definitely I would 100% jump on the notes, keep the SKUs for suppliers where relevant, use the notes for internal referencing. That's why it's there. That's what notes fields in Jobman are definitely for, anything internal, and save your barcoding because at some point QR coding, scanning, barcode scanning, or even ST4 or GE scanning will be available in the software. So I'm sure you're going to want to utilize those. So keeping those fields open makes a lot of sense.